I'm Brittney, 18 years old, from Burnville, PA, originally from Hatboro, and I have 2 years, 5 months, and some odd days clean.
Okay. So I hear that you're going to be attending at Penn State University. What made you choose Penn State?
Well, I'm going to go to Penn State Berks, which is community college. It's not the main campus, but it's actually a couple minutes from my house, and I heard like they have a good program for substance abuse counseling, so I might do my master's degree there. Haven't really decided yet, haven't committed, but I think that's where I'm going to go.
So what do you plan to do with your degree?
I want to do things differently, and so when I started getting clean, my counselors, they weren't in recovery. Like I feel like they judged me and they didn't understand. Like, how could you talk to someone and get help from someone when they have never been there? They've never been in that rock bottom. So I want to take my story and be a counselor for substance abuse and like tell kids it's okay if you're 16, it's okay if you're 14, 18, whatever it might be. You're never too young. Like, you don't have to be like those 30-year-olds that are now just getting it at age 30. So that's what I want to do with it. And then I want to also open an adolescent halfway house, because there's nowhere for adolescents to go. They go back to high school and they wonder why they didn't stay clean, or they wonder why they died, or you know what I mean? So, but there's only one in Illinois, and I was actually supposed to go there after treatment, but it's too far from home. I wouldn't really succeed out there because I don't have a support group, nothing. So that's what I want to do with it.
Okay, so now I think we're going to start at the beginning. So how old were you when you started using drugs?
When I started using, I was 7, is when I picked up my first drug, and that was marijuana, pot.
And were there any like reasons, or what was going through your mind when you
There
started?
was. My family was really weird. You know, I had parents, they were married, but they divorced when I was 3. And from that point on, my family situation got really weird. And when I was 5, my mom got in a different relationship, and this guy introduced her to methamphetamines. And so on top of that, my mom is bipolar and schizophrenia, and she stopped taking her medication. So from the meth and her mental disabilities, she started physically abusing me. But from that point on, like I never was hugged by my mom, never was kissed by my mom, never was tucked in. So like I didn't know what a bedtime story was. And so at the age of 5, I couldn't smile, I couldn't laugh. Like even like cartoon, like SpongeBob would be on, and like a funny joke would come and I wouldn't laugh. I felt wrong laughing because I was so upset. And so I always hung around older kids. And one day, by age of 7, you know, soccer was not enough. Like at 7 years old, you get happy over a scooter, a bicycle, whatever it might be, but it wasn't enough. I just wasn't happy. So I was walking in my apartment complex, and my older friends, I knew the smell of it because my mom used it and her fiance at the time used it as well. And all I saw was the kids in a circle smoking pot, and I saw laughter and smiles. And that's what I wanted. If they were getting that off of that, I wanted that, whatever it was. So I went and chased it at 7 years old. And like, they were all like trouble, like, cause that was my nickname. And they're like, this is so funny. But after that, I was hooked because I was numbing my feelings. So when I would go home to my mom and she would abuse me, it didn't affect me because I was high. And I was able to laugh, but I didn't know it was gonna lead into 9 years of using and picking up heroin at 10 years old. You know, so it's crazy how fast it went. And like, I have addiction in my family, and I was hooked instantly. You know, like pot isn't physically addicting, but it was for me, and it's also mentally addicting. And that's what I do every single day, was smoking pot at 7 years old, and it started from there.
Do you think that's the reason why so many people struggle with drug addiction, is because they feel something like you felt and they just want to numb their pain?
Growing up, I thought you had to come from a bad past to use, but that's not the case. Like, that's so textbook. Everyone, it's like they think you have to come from a bad past to use, but in my opinion, it's not. You can be in high school and like your friends start doing it, so it's an experiment. You're trying it out. You're going to those parties, having a sip of beer, and all of a sudden, like in your head, your endorphins, it's like they're saying, I like this. But your experiment is no longer experiment, it's addiction. So like some of my friends who I used to hang out with, the weekend parties, some of the kids would stop at the weekend. Sunday night when that comes, they'd sober up to go to school Monday. But my friends, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, was all using. So it can become an addiction with that. You know, you don't have to come from a bad past. Anything can get you, and like eventually, like you like it so much, you want more and more and more. Like shoes, you know, like 2 years ago, Toms were very popular. You had every color. Same thing with drugs. Like once you find it and you start liking it, you want more, and eventually, like it makes your life unmanageable.
So you did drugs for a very long time. Why do you think you did drugs for such a long time?
I couldn't stop. I lived with my mom from 5 to 14. And when I was 14, I had an intervention. I was getting off of detention from school freshman year, and my grandparents, who I lived with, said, you know, we're gonna go to Lowe's and get a pot for grandmom. I didn't think anything of it because my grandma was into gardening and everything, so I'm like, all right, that's normal. We passed Lowe's, and I said, we passed it, and they said, we're going to Doylestown for an intervention. And I said every curse word in the book at them. I was so pissed off because growing up, that's all I knew. From 7 years old, you know, I couldn't tell you my favorite color. I couldn't tell you my favorite sports team, but I could tell you my favorite drug, and that's messed up to say. So I was scared, what is life gonna be like without using? And I was scared to feel my mom's pain again. Like I have permanent damage to this day because of what she's done. Like my jaw is dislocated. I don't have feeling on this side. And I would numb and numb and numb my body. But then it's crazy in a way when I say this, but when I was 14 and I got away from my mom, I moved in with my grandparents, and they're a loving family. They hug me, they tell me they love me. And from my mom, I didn't feel worthy enough of their love and support, and I still used 2 years later, so I was 16, and I just couldn't stop. It's a monster. That's addiction. It gets you, and you go through withdrawal, and then through those years, I lost all sense of hope. You know, the light at the tunnel, they say. I couldn't find it. I really couldn't. Does that mess up?
It's okay.
All I could find was another bag. Waking up, not being able to know what I did last night, or waking up with a needle in my arm. That was my life, was addiction. That's how I felt somewhat normal. I could talk to you, hi, as anything. I could play soccer, hi. But sober, I didn't know, I felt awkward. I'm an awkward person, because I like making things awkward because I feel comfortable. Does that answer your question?
So, yes. You said that you still struggled with your addiction after your grandparents gave you an intervention. Why do you think that intervention wasn't successful?
I was scared to give up the drugs, you know. So at 14, it was 7 years of using it. 4 years of using heroin every single day. Like I couldn't imagine what I would do without it. As soon as I wake up, I get high. To get a shower, I get high. After shower, I get high. Eat my breakfast, I get high. Everything was getting high. And so what my counselor did when I was 14 is she gave me a piece of paper, and she said, write down everything you do during your day. And so I wrote my list down of my daily agenda. And she said, erase everything. She said, erase everything that's associated with getting high. My paper was blank when I erased everything, because everything I do was getting high. So I didn't know, I was really scared. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to surrender, is what we say in the program of surrendering. I didn't know what to do, so I stuck with it. But it was the hardest 2 years of my life, from 14 to 16, because I felt guilty every single time I handed in a dirty test, of a drug test, you know, and I knew it was going to be dirty. I tried coming up with ways to cheat the system so I didn't fail my drug test, or smuggling in pee, put it in between your legs or whatever in a bag. It's disgusting, but I didn't want to go away, you know, so you do everything you can to not give it up or not get caught.
You said that you started out using drugs like marijuana and then going to harder drugs like heroin. How was that process? Do you believe in the process of the gateway drugs?
Of pot being a gateway drug?
Mm-hmm.
That's a hard question, and I don't want to advocate that pot is a gateway drug, and I don't want to say it's not.
Mm-hmm.
for me, I'm gonna speak personally on, for me, pot got boring. It wasn't enough, you know, and also, pot is expensive. It's $20 a bag, where a bag of heroin is $5. So a kid who doesn't have a job, that was for me. And I experimented with other drugs from 7 to 10. But after a while, it was boring. You know, it wasn't numbing my pain anymore. I had to smoke more to get to that first high. And you'll never get your first high. I don't know why, but you just don't. So as I said, it's $20. I was buying eighths of marijuana, $60. And multiple times of that. So I would be spending over $100 on pot. And I couldn't realize, you know, why am I wasting all this money for something that's not giving me that crunch anymore? I could still feel my mom's pain. I could still feel the pain in myself. And my friend was like, listen, like, I have this hard thing. It's harder. It'll numb you like really good. Here it is. And I said, what is it? And she said, it's heroin. And I always said I would never do it. I always said I would never put a needle in my arm, but I did. It just was like that. It happened, and I didn't think anything of it. I didn't second guess it. I didn't say like, oh, this could make me die. I wanted it because it just made me feel good.
What was the final factor? What finally influenced you to get clean?
I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. Using is like a full-time job. You got to figure out where it is. No matter if you got all these people on your side willing to deal to you at any minute, you have to figure out how to get there. And you got to figure out in school. So for me, I was in high school. I had to figure out how to fake the teachers that I wasn't high. And they knew I had like this reputation. Whether I put it in cookies, marijuana in cookies, I still got caught. Whether it's tripping over an extension cord in the classroom, they knew I was high. And so there's so much work that goes into it, and eventually you become sloppy, and you can't keep up with your cover anymore. And I was tired of using, and I just knew after being in and out of intensive outpatient 10 different times, something wasn't right, something wasn't working. And in the program, there's this saying, it says, doing the same thing, expecting different results. I had to do something different to get different results. And that's what I got.
And I know that when you were in high school, you saw Chris Herron's presentation, and that really affected you. What was so effective about his presentation?
Honestly, 2 years back, 2.5 years back, not much. Not much, because at the time I was withdrawing. I mean, he was inspiring, don't get me wrong. But I would have never went up there if it wasn't for my superintendent of the district, Dr. Griffin. He made me go up there and say, you were going to tell him you were 7 years old when you started using. You're going to tell him you were 10 years old when you started using heroin and that you're still on heroin and how much you struggle. And all the kids in my high school, I was known as the biggest dope fiend. I was, you know, leaning against the wall in high school to get to my next class, crawling on the floor because I'm so sick. There was this one teacher who would hide me in her room throwing up because I had to go to school. I was in trouble with truancy. So I said that to him, and instantly he gave me a hug. And something clicked in my head, this is it. This is your different result you're talking about, not doing the same thing. And I don't know how it really went down. I was on a 22-day suspension, like I said. And I don't know if my school was working with him at the time during those 22 days, but we went on a little walk that wasn't really a walk after he spoke to the public. And, you know, he said, listen, I can send you to treatment. Do you want help? And the first time in my life, from 14 to 16, I finally said yes. Like, I put my hands up and I surrendered. Because I knew if I didn't get it now, I would be like those 30-year-olds getting it, no kids, or maybe having kids and they're in a dysfunctional family. I didn't want to be like my parents, struggling, getting kicked out of apartments, losing cars, $20,000 in debt. So I said, yeah, I'll accept your help. And in a day and a half, not even, pretty much overnight, he knew where I was going. He sent me to care and treatment centers in Warnersville. The next day, he spoke to the kids, like we just did now. And rumors went everywhere, like, oh, this is the Project Purple kid. You know, everyone couldn't believe it that like I was getting help and that Brittney Sulat accepted help for the first time in her life. And then January 10th, I went to Karen for 3 months, and that was that.
And what has helped you stay clean for the past 2 years?
Getting in service. And what that means is you have a home group in a 12-step program. I'm open, I go to Narcotics Anonymous. I don't have anything against if people go to AA or CA, OA. No matter what program you go to, it's all the same. The steps are the same, it's just maybe, you know, like admitting we are powerless over drugs. For AA, it's alcohol. You know, so they just switch words around. But after you get a year of sobriety, recovery, whatever you want to call it, you can get in service through H&I, which is hospitals and institutions. And through that service, I was able to do the Bucks County Youth Detention Center. I'm bringing meetings to them, and it kept me clean because, yeah, you have a home group, you make coffee, you can clean up the cigarette butts, you can set up the meeting, but a metal chair doesn't say thank you. These kids at the detention center were thanking me for bringing them a meeting, getting them out of their rooms for an hour and letting them talk about their problems. So that kept me clean. And then after a while, certain things came into my life where, you know, for school, I have to stay clean. During my internship, I had to stay clean. I got drug tested on random. And eventually, I don't want to go back to that. You know, I could easily get high right now. But what I do know is I don't have another recovery. And to answer your question further on what made me stay clean, it was the last week of treatment in Karen. And I was making reservations. I was plotting to get high again. After 3 months of like starting to love myself, I was able to look in the mirror again and accept what I see after 3 months, and I was about to throw it all away. But I had this dream where my great-grandparents like were in my room and my duffel bags were on the ground and they snapped their fingers and we ended up in the cemetery. So all I saw in my dream was my great-grandfather's dream, my great-grandfather's grave, my great-grandmom's grave, and then next to hers was mine. And I knew I had to stop. I had to be honest. I was making these reservations with my counselor because I knew, you know, like I said, I have another run in me, but I don't have another recovery because I've been through this so many times. And for some reason, no matter how much abstinence it has been, I will pick up where I left off. If I were to pick up today where I left off on using, I would die right then and there. And throughout my 2 years of recovery, I've been to 14 funerals of my friends. Good kids, you know, like one time, it's one and done, a lot of them. And I didn't want to be like that. I wanted to break statistics that I don't have to be 6 feet under. I wanted to be an inspiration for kids. Like, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be like that. Talk about it, and who cares? Like, people are gonna judge you. People still judge me. Like, oh my God, you're on heroin. Like, I can't imagine. There's no way of looking that you are. Like, yeah, like tattoos, I think you're an addict. But I've been in the program for 4 years now. I've met doctors. Your doctor could be in recovery. So there's no image that you have to be an addict or an alcoholic.
What advice would you have for kids that are currently dealing with addiction and substance abuse?
Get honest. You're only gonna hurt yourself if you're not honest, you know, and stop making excuses. And what I mean by that is when I was in my addiction, I'd always say, you know, it's because of my mom I'm still using. When in reality, it didn't do anything to her. It was affecting me, my life. You know, I had to quit soccer. I had to drop out of school. I couldn't graduate with my class. I couldn't go to a lot of things because I was high. I can't go in certain stores because I messed it all up. So if you get honest, it'll help you. And getting a support group, you know, it's like, I'm a visual person, so in treatment I learned like this visual thing of what addiction looks like. And so it's you in the middle, and there's people around you, and they represent like your mom, your dad, your friends, your meetings, and your sponsor, and step work. All right, so you stop doing step work, the circle gets smaller. You stop going to meetings, the circle gets smaller. And on the outside of the circle is addiction. It's really just a person. And it was scary for me to see what it was look like. So it's you and I sitting like, your addiction, I don't like you that close if you're addiction. Like, I want you far away. And so, but what I also learned is that in high school, Monday and Friday are the hardest days of the week. Monday, you hear about the party that happened over the weekend. Friday, you're gonna hear the party that happened. So I always avoided, I didn't go to school those 2 days. I'm not saying do that because you get in trouble and you miss class. So, But the thing is, be different. You know, if you see someone getting high, like someone, I remember my head was down because I was really hurting, and this random girl, I don't know her name, I don't remember much, but she was like, why don't you smile? And then like first time, I'm like, wow, like people really see me. Like I thought I was invisible because I was just, no one wanted to be with me. No one. They were like, this kid is not going anywhere. And just to confront your friends. And I don't condone snitching, I really don't, but I know someone who snitched on their best friend and now he has 5 years clean. To his parents, snitch. I personally would never snitch, but if it meant I could save my friend's life, I would in a heartbeat. I would go to their parents and I would say, listen, your kid is doing this, 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 this. I just did it the other week, you know, my friend from the program, his daughter is going to those raves that it's now popular. It wasn't really popular when I was around. And she's popping Molly. And she's only 17 years old. And he thinks like, oh, she's a straight A student, has her own business, like there's nothing wrong with her. And I said, listen, like I see your daughter on Facebook. This is what's going on. And he thanked me because now he's confronted her daughter, or his daughter, and she's now in treatment because she actually had a problem, and she was putting on Facebook hoping someone would say something, and that's what I did. I'm not saying I saved their life, but I snitched to potentially save her life and get the help that she needs.
What advice would you give to people who have maybe a friend or a relative that is dealing with addiction?
Like I said, talk about it, talk about it, talk about it. When I was really wrapped up in my addiction, my friend, we used to have like heart-to-hearts in random parking lots, and she'd be crying because like she's my best friend, and she's like, you know, they called me sloth in high school, I will admit that, because I'm really slow, but I was also high, but like I don't like walking fast. So she would say like, sloth, like I'm so concerned about you. What are you doing with your life? Like you keep on using, you have like track marks all over your arms, and you would never know because I have them tattooed so you can't see them. But knowing someone cared, because I couldn't care about myself. So they always say in the program, let me love you till you love yourself. That's what she said. And eventually like I started realizing like all these people really do care. You know, because I always thought like, don't you ever wonder like what would happen if you were dead for a day? Like who would be at your funeral? I don't need to experience that. I know people care, even if I don't know them. It's amazing how close a school can get when someone passes away because you support each other. And that's what you have to do. You have to support them and just go towards that cliff and take the risk of confronting them. They might hate you. They really do. They might curse you out because they're pissed off that you snitched. But eventually, as time goes on, they'll come back and thank you for saving their lives and making them realize like, hey, like you really do have a problem.
How has your recovery process helped you have a better view of yourself?
Step work. And you do that with a sponsor. I couldn't tell you, even when I first got clean in treatment, I had to fill out like this little questionnaire of like what my favorite color was, what my favorite food was. I couldn't answer one question. And so like when you start dating, they're like, you know, a guy is like, what are you like doing? I don't know. I couldn't answer one question. And so through step work, I started figuring out like who I was.
Just go.
I started figuring out like who I was and what coming over problems and everything, like in step 4, that's huge. It's resentments and fear and abuse, and you talk about it. And the most important steps, I think, is 1 through 3. If you have a good foundation of steps 1 through 3, and you probably don't even know what I'm talking about, it's probably going over your head, no offense to you, but it's really complicated to know what it means. But steps 1 through 3 is about surrendering and getting a belief. I don't want to say God because I'm not religious and I have no problems with people that are. I have a higher power of my understanding. But steps 1 through 3, it's like the foundation. It's like the cement to your feet. If you get a good foundation, you probably won't relapse, probably. But you always will have that monster on your back. But step work has helped me realize who I am, and it's helped me in recovery. Like I've been really struggling lately of like contemplating on leaving the program because it's repetitive. And I get nervous because I'm the youngest one there. I came in when I was 14, and there's people that are 30, 40, you know, tattoos, bikers, whatever it might be, moms, dads, and I'm like, I can't relate to anybody. But I may not relate to their personal life, but what I can relate to is that we're both addicts in recovery, trying to get another day clean. My time now, 2 years, 5 months, that means nothing. I'm doing the same thing someone is doing right now with 1 day clean, that's trying to get another minute, another hour, another day. Because if I let that time get to my head like, oh, Britt, you have 2 years, let's go test the waters, that's what my disease does. It wants me to go get high, so I don't do that. I don't test the waters. Like, why test it if they're calm, you know? So, yeah.
Okay, and one of my last questions is going to be, what are some of your future goals?
My future goals? Obviously, to get another day clean. That's my future goals. But I can answer that, but I can't really answer that because I live in today. And too many times I've thought about the next day. Where am I going to get the next one? So I like to think in today, but I'll answer it anyways. I want to graduate college. You know, I have a 3.98. After this class, I have a 4.0 in college. That's insane. Because in high school, I had zeros and 19%, and they said I wasn't going to go anywhere, but now I have a 4.0, well, 3.98. Like, that says something. So I want to go graduate, obviously, hopefully set up an adolescent halfway house, be the best counselor I can be, and just help people. I could have the worst day, and if you say, like, I helped you, or I'm working on helping you, it's a good day. And more so, if I don't use, it's a great day. It could be raining, 4 feet of snow outside, and if I didn't pick up, it wasn't that bad of a day, because that's just how my life is. Are we done?
I don't know. Is there anything else that anyone wants me to add, or? Okay.
If there's anything else you want to touch on, like from high school or anything else, that was really good. Usually we cut interviews before that, but just
Okay.
if there's anything else.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's it. Because I don't want to comment on high schools because I don't want to overstep on people's toes. Because I go all day about how I hate certain high schools.
Well, as long as, I think what we can do, if you want to, if there are things that you want to say, as long as you don't name specific names, we should be able to work with you. As long as it's all right. Does that sound, this is Mrs. Bennett, she's like the main administrative person who's on this.
I mean, I guess the only thing I would say is I wish schools would take that risk in saying they have kids who are on drugs. But this is what we're going to do about it. I mean, so many schools, like my old high school, yeah, they have a reputation of being heroin high, but what do they do about it? Nothing. They turn their heads as if they don't know, and by them turning their heads, they wonder why multiple people have died. That's my problem. Like, I feel like they should do something about it and say, like, yeah, who cares? We have addicts, but we're going to help them do this. We're going to help them do that instead of suspending them. Like, I get it, it's a consequence. You have drugs on school grounds. But what does suspending them do except hurt them even more? Because now they have nothing. There's all that time during the day that they can go get high and go do their thing, and it does nothing. I hate it. If I could be a principal, I would do things differently. I really would. I would say, yeah, we have kids, you know, Chris Herron, he might speak for a day. And it's going to be powerful. Your school is going to be different for a couple of days. But then after, let's say next week, it's going to go back to normal. Because people are going to be like, they're going to forget about it. Because during the weekend, they're going to go party. Some of them will, some of them won't. But they should just do things differently. So, yeah.